Good afternoon, Australia. I'm Mike Raven. Welcome to Oran Park Raceway for the grand final of the 1990 Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. And what a grand final. 4 drivers today with a chance of winning. Just exactly which driver has the better chance, I'm not quite sure. But one man who should, co-commentator Alan Moffat. Alan, who are you going for?
I'm going for Peter. I think he's on form, and he's got a new associate sponsor there with Sid Chrome. He wants to put on a best show, and he'll do it.
Well, of course, the big question is, can Dick Johnson retain the championship? Jim Richards says no way. Let's take a look at the way the field lines up today for what promises to be the race of the decade. Pole position for today's championship final, Jim Richards in the Nissan GTR. From 2 at 0.5, Peter Brock. Out of 3.17, Dick Johnson, the defending champion. From 4.25, Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges Sierra. From 5.18, John Bowen, the second of the Shell cars. From 6 at 35, Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. From 7.20, Alan Jones. From position number 8, car number 30, welcome back, Georgie Fury. From 9, it's 55, Kevin Waldock. Out of position 10, car number 16, Win Percy, the first of the Holdens. Out of 11, car number 8, Colin Bond in the Caltech Sierra. From 12.21, Mark Gibbs in the Bob Forbes Commodore. From 13, car 3, Mark Skate, the second of the Nissans. From 14, car number 11, Larry Perkins in the Castrol Commodore. From 15.23, Chris Lambden in the Bow Repairs Nissan. From 16.37, Brian Callahan in the Commodore. From 17.27, Terry Finnegan in the Commodore. Out of 18, number 12, Ray Lintott in the Valvoline Sierra. From 19.32, Trevor Ashby in a Commodore. And car number 33, Bob Pearson, starts out of position number 20 in the Product Commodore. That's the top 20 for today's Shell Ultra Shootout, and after the break we'll be back for the most important race start of the season. Welcome back to Oran Park Raceway for the grand final of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. Beautiful weather conditions here today. A capacity grid, a capacity crowd has turned out. The final round of the 1990 series, and the beautiful weather has even brought out the politicians, including Dr. Hewson. Ready for the start. Richards head-to-head against Brock. Richards wins the start. Absolutely flies off the line. Everyone gets off the line comfortably, heads down towards the first turn, and look at Richards spread eagling the field already as they head down. And a brilliant start, I think, from Tony Longhurst.
He got a great, Richards did exactly that in Perth. Mike, he's obviously got all those 4 wheels pulling at the same time. There's no difficulties with their differentials in that start. Field closing up a bit in the infield.
And now we have a couple of spoilers, Neil Crompton. Tony Longhurst, a magnificent start there, puts him up into second spot. John Bower is away quicker than Dick Johnson. Colin Bond, a lot of work to do, out of position number 11.
Yes, it was a terrific start from Tony. Aggressive the first couple of corners and cleared himself up from position 4 on the grid after recording a 1:12.02 and chasing his old teammate, Jim Richards.
Well, ideally, Johnson wanted Brock up there, giving Richards plenty of curry in these opening laps, but Brocky must have slipped off the line with his clutch. He's a long way back, 7th spot there. You can see him in the picture now. And he'll work his way through, no doubt.
Colin Bond starting out of 11th up to 9th as they complete the first lap on grand final day at Oran Park. And there's John Bower going out after Tony Longhurst, but disappearing into the distance is Jimmy Richards in the Nissan GTR. 4-wheel drive, twin turbo. And looking for Peter Brock. He's sitting in behind Johnson, so he hasn't made the best of starts. And there is Peter Brock with the 2 Peter Jackson Sierras, driven today by Glenn Seaton and by George Fury, sitting in behind him.
Well, the handling aspects of Oran Park, Mike, will keep the field tight in through the S's. The approach here up onto the bridge,
Oops.
Somebody having a bit of a spin.
That looks like
Ray Lintott.
Ray Lintott in the
Valvoline Sierra. Plenty of G-forces going through these corners. It's not for the faint-hearted. But you'll notice the field is tight on the infield. Approach to Sutton's corner. Gliding through here, picking up 3rd gear. Gunning it. Here's our rear cam. How do we call this, Mike? Rear cam, or?
That's our Dunlop race cam out of the back of Dick Johnson's car, and he's got Peter Brock all over him. And it looks like the GIO car of Gibbs has gone off the racetrack, and he's trying to rejoin on the loop area heading down to Sutton's corner. So the first indiscretion, he rejoins as we pick up on Johnny Bower running third at the moment, behind race leader Jimmy Richards, Tony Longhurst, and then Alan Jones sitting in right behind Bow.
Notice they're starting to tighten up a little bit in this pack now, the two B&H cars, the two Shell cars, Peter Brock lurking in there as well. We saw a graphic shot from the back view with the Dunlop race cam of Glenn Seaton really in the dirt over the top of the dog leg as well, so this looks like shaping up for a sensational second place battle ultimately as Brock works away at the back of Johnson. Approaching now the right-hander up to the bridge. It's rough and slippery on the inside.
Well, Brock is definitely gnawing at that back bumper bar of Dick's car. You don't get this close without there's going to be a little tap here sooner or later.
The other thing, Alan, is that today's temperature is significantly warmer than yesterday and certainly than Thursday's and Friday's practice. That'll make for an interesting race when we see what happens with tyres after 50 minutes.
Well, I think one of the things that is going out the door at the moment with the pressures that is on everyone for this championship final, they'll probably be hounding their tyres a little bit harder here in the first 10 laps of the race. Saw Tony Longhurst there and Seaton just about touching that brick wall on the exit of the dipper onto the main straight. They're throwing everything they've got into these cars. No one wants to lose the drift. I was going to say no one wants to lose the drift. They don't want to lose the
draft.
the draft. You've got me, Michael. And Brocky's taken that draft there. He's in a bad position here. He needs to turn right in a second or two, and Dick will be well placed to stay in front. But no doubt that bad start on Peter Brock's part is costing him dearly now. He'd like to have nothing but fresh air in front of him, but he's got a big Shell Sierra in front of him at the moment. Another little bite here, and it looks like he's got him.
Through on the inside of Dick Johnson, over the top of the bridge, so Peter Brock picks up one. But keeping in mind, without going into the full scenario of where everyone's got, and should finish, for Jim Richards, the title will be Richards if he wins or finishes second to anyone but Johnson. So at the moment, there's no problem about that. Gentleman Jim is just spread-eagling the field in the Nissan GTR, and there he goes.
Well, they'll know how hard they can run their engines, and at this stage it'll be really in Jim's hands. The championship is in his hands. He knows what the tires will deliver for him. He knows how to hold the car in a nice, gentle position and still make good lap times. He'll be working himself to death in an attempt to be easy on the car, which he traditionally is.
He's got already 4 seconds gap. I mean, it's quite incredible in the early stages of the race. We're only 5.5 minutes in.
See, a lot of people thought that the Nissan team were foxing because they weren't outstanding with the car at Wanneroo. But Richards said, even after the Wanneroo race, they were coming to Oran Park. They weren't going to conserve. They were going out to win the race. And if they won the title on the way through, that'd be great.
New sponsors for Nissan this weekend too in Sansui, and a massive effort by Fred Gibson's team to prepare for this race, and they've really done their homework.
Well, there'll be many years contributors to Australian motorsport. There's no question that they deserve whatever laurels they can get. An enormous gap. That's not what you call any life-threatening situation there. Jim can virtually command this race to his heart's content at this stage. Dick is definitely not a threat.
There they go down the front straight. Tony Longhurst has qualified so well in all of the rounds of the championship. Johnny Bow sitting in behind him, and then right behind them, Alan Jones in the second of the Benson and Hedges Sierras.
Longhurst runs a great team. He puts a lot of heart, energy into his team, and with Alan Jones backing him up, they do a very good job for the company they represent.
Well, they've had a mixed bag, you might like to call it, this season. The fastest cars in so many of the rounds, but they've been the fastest cars on Friday, in qualifying on Saturday, and game plan goes out the window seemingly on Sunday.
Interesting battle looming here between Peter Brock and Alan Jones, as Brock now opens up a small gap on Dick Johnson. Jim Richards, meanwhile, out to just on 5 seconds plus over Tony Longhurst, though he's pulling away at a rate of almost 1 second a lap at the moment, a little less than that.
On that equation, Neil, we can forget about him. He can take the checkered flag when he wants. He still has to finish, of course, and maybe that's their plan. They need to get a cushion that they want to back off later in the race, or they have to take it easier on tires later in the race. But at the moment, this is annihilation time, I'm afraid.
That scrap that we're looking at now is going to turn into a ripper. We've got 4 or 5 very competitive cars, very quick drivers, all bunching up here. Glenn Seaton on the end of the tag there, as well as we look at Jeffrey Full in the Toyota parked on the outside of the road beneath the Pepsi stand. This is the entrance to the main straight. John Bowe now coming under pressure from Alan Jones, who in turn is going to have to think about Peter Brock.
Yes, you're right, Neil. This is where the scrap is in the race at the moment. Longhurst, then Bowe trying to fend off Alan Jones in the second of the B&H cars, and Peter Brock in the Sid Chrome Sierra right behind him.
I'm quite surprised at Peter's position. I thought for sure the way he's been on form the last number of races that he would have been really a candidate for that first corner. Jim Richards is no slouch off the start, but when you're on the front row, it's anybody's bite. It's not necessarily just the pole sitter. But whatever went wrong on the start line, it's costing him very dearly now, Mike.
It certainly is. Peter McKay will be covering the action for us in the pits today, and I guess he'll have Freddie Gibson for us shortly, who won't have broken into a smile just yet, but Fred will be riding this one out by the seat of his pants.
Richards out to over 6 seconds now over Tony Longhurst.
Down to the end of the straight as Alan Jones closes right up behind Johnny Bowe. Peter Brock back about the same gap he was a lap back beneath the bridge down to the right-hander. Jones just showing the nose of the Sierra to Johnny Bowe. So that's the situation here at Oran Park Raceway. Let's check them out for you on our Shell race score. Jimmy Richards is your race leader. Tony Longhurst runs in second. Johnny Bowe is third. Fourth placed is Alan Jones, and rounding out the 5 in 05, Peter Brock. Back at Oran Park Raceway for the grand final of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. And Dick Johnson starting off the second row here today and falling back through the pack into the hands now of Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Glenn, a young guy who's starting to really put it together. The team had problems early in the season, but they've become far more reliable in the last couple of races. And this race is not going well for Dick Johnson.
No, strangely, Michael, you see it's a case of pressure on everybody, and I admire Dick's stance in qualifying, pacing himself, using the harder tires again of the two. We're looking now from the Dulux cam on top of Glenn Seaton's car. Great view, chasing Dick Johnson down the straight, and Johnson's chosen the harder of the two Dunlop tires that are available to him, and hoping that everything will be fine for him in the last quarter of the game.
Yeah.
But he is a long way off the front runners at the moment. He's got Brock, both the Benson and Hedges cars, and of course Jim Richards in the sunset already.
Jim's 12 seconds clear of Tony Longhurst at this relatively early stage. We're only 14 minutes into the race, and behind this duo we've got Colin Bond about 2 seconds shy of the mark, and then a small gap to George Fury, who joins the Peter Jackson team for the first time this weekend in another of the Sierras. We're on lap 11.
Lap 11, as you say. Dick Johnson trying to fend off Glenn Seaton. I guess most of Queensland riding for Tricky Dicky this afternoon. Nice to have you aboard, all our viewers throughout Queensland looking at us early in the afternoon.
And we can say hi to our mate Greg Hansford, who we know will be doing just that. Greg not relaxing too much, setting up a defensive driving school in Brisbane. Can't get any closer than that. I think Dick's driving fairly defensively at the moment.
Some fantastic pickies today from Mark Woodley, Charlie Busby and our race cam boys. The Dunlop race cam out of the rear of Dick Johnson's Shell Sierra as they come down the end of the long straight. And here Seaton just showing the nose of the car at Dick as they prepare to go beneath the bridge, and then the short sprint down to the right-hander. So if Dick is in conservative mode at the moment, the man giving him some hurry is a young Seaton. And they've got a real traffic jam up ahead of them.
Yes,
which we'll get for you in a second or two.
Glenn driving very sportingly.
Kevin Waldock to the pits in the Playscape Sierra.
Not one for tapping anybody, certainly close enough to do that. Lots of people might have. Dicey part of the circuit, a lot of forces in the cut. He's drifting over to the right over the edge again, coming up towards the dog leg. A left, drift over to the right, use every bit of the tarmac. Dick Johnson right there over to the right. Now the wall waiting for them. Doesn't look much from this angle, but believe me, from the driver's seat, they're right up there about 2 millimeters away from that wall.
On our next shot, you'll probably get to see the group just ahead of them as they head down the straight with Alan Jones, John Bowe, of course, and Peter Brock.
The top 10 order at the moment, gents. Jim Richards leading by nearly 14 seconds now from Tony Longhurst. In third place, Peter Brock, who's eased the pressure off himself a little bit from John Bowe. Then we've got Alan Jones in hot pursuit here, car 20 in fifth place, followed by Dick Johnson, then Glenn Seaton, Colin Bond, George Fury, and rounding out the top 10, Larry Perkins in the Castrol Commodore.
Little spin there from, not spin, but a little tail wiggle, fishtail from Alan Jones, getting the power down quickly, and tires not quite responding the way he'd like. Anytime the car goes sideways, it's naturally he's not going forwards.
Sweeping up to Sutton's corner again. John Bowe, Alan Jones, they've been at it hammer and tongs. Brock's been able to slip through. That eases the pressure just a little bit. And Brock down into some traffic. Right behind him comes Bowe.
John Bowe's done a superb job in the Shell team all year. Backed up Dick beautifully on every occasion. Just the once when he was bumped out in Malala. A great team driver and an asset to the Shell team.
The gap from first to second, Richards to Longhurst, is now 18 seconds.
It's like an Ayrton Senna performance.
It's a bit like that.
Here we go.
Here's Brocky and Longhurst snap.
Make that 18 seconds, Jim Richards to Peter Brock.
So Brock has been able, after that appalling start to be able to pick the pace up, come back through the pack. He was back to what, about 6th or 7th?
7th, I think.
And now back to 2nd.
Excellent.
So the onus is now on Jim Richards to be able to run the race, or the remainder of the race, at the same pace. And there is every indication he'll do just that. Through Sutton's Corner, Peter Brock heads along that short straight, the kink to the right, back to the left, and then the downhill run. Here he comes, and the crowd already warming to Brock. He's their hero so far today. He may have missed the start, but he's passed more cars than probably anyone else. Let's have a look at a replay here of Glenn Seaton looking for Dick Johnson. This happened just a few seconds ago as we're checking on Brock. Down on the inside, moment of truth.
Nice move, very nice.
Was. Dick left a little opening there, and Glenn took advantage of it in the Peter Jackson Sierra, so he also has improved his spot as we follow Peter Brock down to the right-hander.
That brings Glenn up to 6th, dropping Johnson back to 7th, Colin Bond 8th, George Fury 9th, and Larry Perkins.
Well, bear in mind for the championship, it's only a question of Richards being somewhere in front of Dick Johnson, and I think it's looking fairly poor for him. Wilmington having a spin.
Yes.
Looked like a bit more than a spin, bit of steam coming out of under the bonnet. I think he's going to have to retire for the day, trying to get out of the way.
Toyota Supra, it heads off. It's got a good head of steam up, you're right about that. We're working lap number 15. Man who should be happy at the moment, I would think it'd be Freddie Gibson. Peter McKay with him in the pits. Well, hopefully he's with him in the pits. We'll pick up as they go beneath the bridge, heading down to the right-hander. Okay, Pete, I hope you're with Freddie Gibson.
Yes, mate. Well, things are going pretty well for Nissan so far in the race, Fred, but it's still a long way to go.
Well, a long way to go yet, Peter. The car's going faultlessly. I can't believe how slow it's going. Like we're now doing 14s and 15s. Like I thought the race would be running 13s and 12s. So like Jimmy's just pacing himself at present. Hopefully the car will keep going the distance and so that we win our first Australian Touring Car Championship.
Fingers crossed, eh?
Got on cross really, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Very confident Freddie Gibson.
I don't think he's too confident until he sees that checkered flag, Michael. This is a business where you can't afford to count your chickens before they've hatched.
Yeah, I'm really interested, Alan, at the times that they're doing. I noticed before on the stopwatch that they were lurking back into relatively slow times, particularly compared to their qualifying performance. And again, that's probably got something to do with the temperature of the day and people maybe choosing a tyre that's just not hard enough to cope with the conditions.
Well, I think we have to realise that they've got the benefit of all the other races behind them, and they know just how hard they've pushed them for the 50 minutes in all the other rounds. And here we are today with the hottest day of the season practically, apart from perhaps the opener at Amaru earlier in the year. And I think they are driving according to what they think will get them a finish. No one wants to come in and have a tyre change in a race like this.
You notice at the end of the straight at Oran Park now, the dreaded concrete wall's gone, thankfully. So that'll save a few people a few $1,000s in the next few months, weeks, years, and so on.
It's taken them a while to realise that, but that was something that was long overdue.
Pretty easy on the motorcyclists in 1990 than it perhaps was a couple of years ago, the concrete wall. So Jimmy Richards in the Nissan GTR continues to lead as we check our Toyota race score. Peter Brock runs 2nd on the racetrack. 3rd is Tony Longhurst. 4th is Johnny Bow. And rounding out the 5 is Alan Jones. And we'll be back at Oran Park in just a sec. Welcome back to Oran Park Raceway. The grand final of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. There is your race leader, Jimmy Richards, in the Nissan GTR. Lap number 20.
Beautiful looking car. Obviously, it's always nice to work with a car that looks so avant-garde. And the effort that has gone into this wagon, I shouldn't call it a wagon, but a vehicle. These particular brand winning races in Japan. Understand the factory's taking 3 vehicles to Spa next weekend, Michael, for the famous 24-hour race in Belgium. Be interesting to see how they go on the long haul, but as an uninterested or neutral party standing back looking at this with a view to Bathurst, I wouldn't want them to see it going any better.
Yes, there's the gap. We've just seen Jim go through. We'll wait now on Peter Brock to give you at home an idea.
You better go and have a cup of tea.
No, here he is.
There he is.
There's Brocky going through in the 05 Sierra, back onto the start finishing straight. So that is quite a gap that Jimmy Richards has put over the field so far as they work lap number 21. 50-minute final here today at Oran Park before a suggested crowd of somewhere between 32 to 35,000 people. Certainly the biggest crowd motorsport in Sydney since I think about 1972.
Yeah, there was a little race between a couple of Mustangs here one year.
An aggressive little bloke from Melbourne and a prospective Canadian, as I recall. That was quite a race.
Yeah, it's a great day.
Bob Jane, Alan Moffat, John Harvey all going head-to-head for the touring car title. And 72 through to 1990. There's the man, number 17, and just has now moved up to make life even more miserable for him, and that's Colin Bond, Caltex's Laughing Cavalier, ready to head up over the bridge. So as Brock has been able to pass all the cars, Dick has been slipping back through the pack.
It's quite strange because obviously Dick is in the same boat that Jim Richards was in. It was win or nothing virtually. I think there was one equation that said if Jim came third and Dick was second, it was going to be a tie. But in all reality, both drivers knew they had to get a strong finish, and it's the Nissan that's doing it against the Ford Sierra here, normally propelled at the head of the field.
Some great shots again from our Dunlop race cameras. Bondy straight down the outside, and that was just too quick.
Johnson
What's happened to
pits.
Johnson? Johnson's headed for the pits. Here he comes down pit lane.
Yes, he's got a difficulty.
So, tyre change for Dick Johnson. The championship had already slipped away. There was absolutely no chance whatsoever after slipping back through the pack that he had any hold back on it again.
It was going to be a record-breaking championship as well, Michael.
Yep.
His 6th. The greatest number to date has been 5.
Oops.
Pete Gagan. There's Tony Longhurst has whacked that very tight right-hander at the base of the bridge.
He had real pressure on him in the last lap from John Bowe as we take Dunlop race cam. Dick Johnson rejoining. On the last lap through, Bowe was right on his tail, so they were having a great scrap for what was 3rd place. So Longhurst will drop back in the order now. We'll give you the top 10 again as soon as possible. I can't find Larry Perkins at the moment. It might just be me, but he was in 10th position. He stopped on the track, which now moves Win Percy up, and Mark Scaife has gone behind Win Percy.
There's some problems for Larry Perkin. He's come to a halt down on the kart track at the bottom end of the circuit. So
Glenn Seaton's got a problem too in car number 35.
Well, that was a pretty snappy stomp for Dick Johnson. He wasn't in there long, and obviously not happy with the tyres, and went for a new set.
Longhurst to the pits. He's got the rear bumper dragging on that car.
They'll obviously take an opportunity to throw some new tyres on as well.
Glenn Seaton to the pits, car 35. There he goes in the foreground. So this is really drastically altering the shape of the top 10 at the moment.
Mechanic pulling like crazy on the back of the car. He's needs some kind of gigantic scissors to snip that bumper bar. It's only plastic, it's not a steel bumper bar, so they are able to get their hands around it.
Well, out goes Tony Longhurst.
It's an indication of the pressure that's involved when championships are at stake, Michael. Everybody's just a little bit rattled, a little bit nervous. Hotter than normal day, putting more strain on the tires than would normally be the case. but that's racing.
That is racing. So Tony Longhurst in the B&H Sierra rejoins. Also a snappy pit stop for Tony. And Jimmy Richards continues to lead. The number 2 Nissan GTR. Twin turbo, 4-wheel drive. Oh,
Alan Jones with the bonnet up.
so the hood goes up on the second of the B&H cars.
Running
It's
two
quick.
cars is a tough job for any team, Michael. I've got, I won't say I've got sympathies for that. That can happen. To run one well is a tough job. To run two is not twice one. It's 3 times the effort. And credit to Tony Longhurst and Benson and Hedges. They've fielded a 2-car team throughout the series. They've been up there all season long. They haven't had a win, but they are genuine, real gentlemen competitors and appreciated by the sport.
Which I guess prompts the question, you only take 2 cars out once a year.
Well,
That's when you're
maybe
really
I'm
serious.
lazy or something
that's
like
when
that.
you're really serious about it.
That's what I'm serious about, and that's where we want to place our emphasis. And obviously, with Rudy Eggenberger's help, I've got a lot of assistance. But to run a 2-car team is a monstrous strain. You don't even see, looking at the Nissan GTR, you don't even see the other Nissan in the screen.
Yeah.
At Malala, they were running, tight up there in the first 4. Freddie's taken the decision. We're going here. We got a championship at stake. I'm going to concentrate on my new car, whatever Jim needs to get this thing going, whatever mechanically is required. And Mark Scaife has dutifully done his best in the other car, but I'm sure all they did to that last night was change the oil on it.
Top 7 at the moment. Richards leading, huge margin over Peter Brock. In 3rd place now we've got John Bowe. 4th is Colin Bond. 5th place we've got George Fury, a great drive. This is the gap. So we saw Richards going through there. There's quite a healthy gap back to Peter Brock, as I suggested. The gap's actually stabilised, maybe even shrunk a little bit in the last couple of laps, but I'd say that's Jim feeling pretty comfortable about life at the moment. You can see there's a fair amount of airspace between these 2 guys. Here he comes.
Well, I honestly believe Jim's in a position now to actually start thinking about winning the race. Heck with the championship. He will have his gap on Johnson, but that will be so far gone it won't matter. He'll be watching what Rocky's doing now.
This is the gap we're looking at the moment, back to John Bowe in 3rd position. There's John, so that's quite substantial as well. No, not too far back, and moving up all the time is Colin Bond. We've seen this before. And behind Colin, we've got George Fury. There's Bonding on the charge again. Behind George Fury, we've got Win Percy. Behind him, Mark Scaife. That's the top 7 that I can work out at this stage.
Who said there are no old and bold drivers left in this business? Bondy just keeps getting better.
Been through this before, and he's definitely an enigma to the rest of them. They're trying to figure out how can it happen. He started many times back there in about 10th or 11th place, came through at Lakeside, came through at Malala, and certainly by any stretch of the imagination not out of this equation if anything happened to the first 2 cars.
No, anything could happen. You're right there, Alan. The race still has a fair way to go. Things looking good for Nissan, though, with the GTR running superbly out in front. We're on lap number 26.
We've run 33.5 minutes now, Mike, a 50-minute race.
I said last night I was getting set for a Queensland trifecta. The Broncos, the Brizzy Bullets and Dick Johnson. You've let me down, pal.
Oh, mate, the race is not over yet.
Oh, good on you. You think I was safer having my money on you than the Brisbane Bears?
Oh, you wouldn't believe, mate, the things that can go wrong when you don't want them to.
Tell us about it, Dick.
Well, I think my drink bottle had an enema inside the car here, and it created fumes because I used some gunk in the bottle that nearly blinded me. Then Brock got past me, would you believe? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that thing of his, like, I nearly choked to death on Mobile 1. It looks like the last train to Ferny Grove.
Great to see you haven't lost your sense of humour.
What's the use, mate? You die if you lose that.
OK, you're going to battle on and try and pick up a couple of points.
Come again?
You're going to battle on and try and pick up a couple of points.
All we need is a bit of luck, mate.
All right, go get them, Tiger. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, pal.
Thank you. What do you say?
Well, I can say that could be quite nasty to have the water coming out of your drink bottle, obviously showing the enormous forces that are going on in these cars for that thing to pop out of its container and get it in Dick's eyes wouldn't have been nice at all. It's hard enough to see where you're going through the windscreen without worrying about giving your eyes a little sudzo. But Bondi right up there behind John Bowe. I think he's got intentions on making it third place.
He certainly has.
That's close enough to certainly take advantage of the draft. Oh, giving it plenty there. Down with the gas and power oversteer, as we refer to it for you technically minded listeners. Nicely controlled and back on, but it cost him a little bit of time. He wants to just sneak right up on that back bumper bar, stay there, and take advantage of the draft all the way down the straight to be able to pass him.
Well, see, he closed up under brakes at the bottom of the hill last time, but Bowe just had too much oomph down the straight for him.
What's also happening is John's now having to move into defence mode, which takes him away from the optimum race line. The minute you get away from the perfect race line, you start to cost yourself time. In some ways, it actually makes you more likely to be exposed to a passing manoeuvre. It's a very difficult juggle in a driver's mind to decide whether or not you want to get a little wider or you just want to commit to driving your car the way you normally do.
Looking at Bowie's right-hand side door, he's had a little coming together with someone there. Let's check them out the way that they're running on the racetrack on our Shell race score. Jimmy Richards, your race leader, doing it easy. Peter Brock runs in second. John Bowe is third, getting even closer is Colin Bond. And running in fifth spot, it's welcome back to George Fury in the Peter Jackson Ford Sierra. Back here at Oran Park Raceway for the grand final of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship, lap 32. We're riding with the race leader, Jimmy Richards, with our Nissan race cam. Just as you joined us just a second or so ago, Colin Bond and John Bowe, that great scrap that we've been following. Have a look at this. Down on the inside comes Colin Bond. Defensively driving was John Bowe, and wham.
Whammo.
Now that
little uncalled for, mate.
Oops, and also a catch on the front. Bond is then able to sweep around the outside and continue on. Johnny Bowe also picks up another gear, but he's carrying the legacy of that little coming together. Bond is 5th in the race. Bowe is still 6th in the race.
And the mover and the shaker in the pack is George Fury up to 3rd.
That's the fastest part of the circuit, and I think slightly unsporting maneuver. Got drivers with their cars on the maximum of adhesion at the end of the fastest part of the circuit. Running close is one thing, tapping people at that speed is another.
You don't think that there was a little 50-50 there, Alan, that Bowe had already come straight across the front of him heading for the corner?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't in his line. That's a tight left-hander at the end of that little short squirt there at the end of the straight, and Bowe was certainly not right over on the right-hand side of the circuit. But from what I could judge, he certainly wasn't turning into the corner at that stage either. Colin gave it an almighty squirt through the apex off the end of the main straight. He had momentum going for him. Perhaps he just couldn't stop. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
Alrighty, so the order still the same. Car number 2, Jimmy Richards, leading from Peter Brock. 30 runs in 3rd place out on the racetrack, and that, of course, is a familiar face to motorsport, Georgie Fury.
George's been out doing a little rallying earlier in the year, and Glenn Seaton has very astutely grabbed his services, put him on the payroll for the rest of the year, so you can see this car as being a formidable runner at Bathurst.
Certainly so.
George knows his way around there. I believe is still credited with the fastest lap ever in a
little turbo.
In a Nissan product, yes.
What we're also looking at is the fact that Nissan this week decided to release George Fury, who of course was his under contract.
Well, no use having the equipment if you haven't got people to drive them.
Group A international and domestic specifications are presently scheduled to remain in place until the end of the 1991 season. I guess that's caused Australian teams some heartburn of late. A short while ago, CAMS President John Larch cleared the air about what we can expect beyond next year.
It gives me a great deal of personal satisfaction to announce that CAMS has made a decision to extend the existing Group A Touring Car Championship rules to the end of 1992. We actually made this decision in principle earlier this year, but it was necessary to wait until I'd been to Paris to the World Motorsport Council meeting in June to find out what the FISA situation was. As it turns out, there's no clarity of thought at FISA level, so CAMS has decided to take the initiative on the basis that we are, after all the world leaders in touring car championship racing. We've taken the initiative and we've announced this decision now so as to give our own teams in Australia the security of knowledge that their investment's good for further periods.
I guess that is good news, Alan.
It's absolutely extremely great news, and coming at this time halfway through the year when we're able to plan with our sponsors and amortize our vehicles over another 24 months, it's tremendous news. Also gives Nissan a great run with their new car, and it gives the new Commodore that's coming next year a real life in front of it instead of just 12 months.
We're looking now at George Fury. Right behind George Fury, of course, is Colin Bond. Only Murray Carter splitting these two as Bondy comes back through the pack again after that little heave-to with John Bowe. So Bond down on the inside of Murray Carter, one of the veteran privateers of Australian motorsport. And there is the Peter Jackson Sierra just ahead as Colin Bond goes after him to improve his final point standings in the championship. Mark Scaife, of course, driving the second Nissan here today. Just about to be lapped by Jim Richards. He's in 7th spot, so Jim is having one heck of a day here at Oran Park. There's Mark Scaife, who did, of course, all of the experimental work in the new car before Jimmy Richards stepped into it. All the testing at Winton, did a great job, was very impressed with the car, and I thought had an outstanding debut in the car at Mallala, only for some hub problems.
We've got Wyn Percy in 6th place at the moment, also in the Holden Racing Team Commodore, having a pretty lonely drive. He's got no one around him after all the drama that's been going on in this race. We've got 45.5 minutes down, and that position of his looks pretty secure.
They come down the hill again. Jimmy Richards sitting just in behind Mark Scaife. The point I was trying to make earlier about Nissan deciding that they were quite happy to release George Fury, considering they were only planning on doing a minor number of enduro races this year. It's been a bonus for the Glenn Seaton team that he was able to join them, because I think he will bring some solidarity to that team as they go towards Bathurst.
Yes, and there's nothing like having experience when you're at Bathurst. It's the most difficult circuit in Australia. It's one of the most difficult circuits in the world, and certainly a little bit of having your apprenticeship behind you is a nice way to have it up there.
Mark Scaife running 8th on the racetrack at the moment as he heads up over Yokohama Bridge.
Well, if this is an indication of how evolution works for you, and when you can have your new car lap your old one and just retire it gracefully, one could say great timing on Nissan's part. I think a little bit more luck than good management there, but credit to them. This company has put millions of dollars into Australian motorsport, and here today about to grab their first Australian Touring Car Championship.
Well, I can recall back a few years ago when they were going head-to-head with BMW, and young Glenn Seaton, of course, driving for Nissan, had a door-to-door run with Jimmy Richards. They had a coming together at the end of the straight. As it was, Jim went on to win yet another Australian championship in the BMW. The car roles are reversed.
Well, today's a win today for Jim will give him his 3rd championship. Getting up there on the numerical ladder as one of the greatest number of championships to his credit, and always nice to have.
Working lap number 38 is Mark Scaife down on the inside of the little Toyota Corolla, still running for their own small car championship within the title.
Yes, Toyota have backed that class for a number of years now. They've won it at Bathurst for umpteen number of years, and again today will be the class winners. Well driven by John Faulkner.
He does a great job, John. To be said, though, that in that baby car class, they're not filling the same number of cars as the outright, and it's not as hot, but it wouldn't matter if they had a dozen Toyotas. John has been the standout performer in the category, not only here but also at Bathurst. Rocky goes through. Phil Ward just going through there, also in the Mercedes.
Well, Peter will be kicking himself today. He probably would have, I honestly felt, had the potential to win the race, but you can't give away anything at this level of competition. You have to grab the start by the throat, you have to get into the first corner, and you've got to keep that daylight in front of you and nice fresh air. Whatever was his problem off the line, it's cost him dearly, and it's honestly given Jim Richards a free run here today. Brocky was the only one on times in qualifying, Neil, that was capable of doing the job. The warm-up this morning was 11.0 for Jim and 11.1 for Peter. Looked like being an absolute real screamer here this afternoon. But luck of the draw, just one ingredient went out the door. Peter missed the start, and it's cost him any chance of a victory here today.
Yes, his lap speed at the moment is certainly strong enough to do the job, but it's possible also that Richo's backed off slightly. But I think Fred Gibson's comment earlier on in the interview with Peter McKay was the most pertinent. You just can't believe how much slower the opposition are running compared to their qualifying form when you look at the fact that there were 2 other drivers in the 11s in qualifying and in the warm-up this morning, and then another group of drivers that were in the very low 12s. But when we actually got to race conditions, the disparity between the 4-wheel drive car and the Sierras has been massive. In the early laps, you remember me saying it was over a second a lap. Quite incredible.
Well, the greatest danger for the rest of us Sierra owners is the fact that we're only driven with 2 wheels. The GTR's got 4 wheels working for it, and obviously each tire is getting a little bit easier job, being a little bit more controllable. And as such, when Yokohama get a package even, shall we say, better than the one they have here today, heaven forbid for the rest of us.
George Fury still lapping very well here. I think the thing that everybody forgets with the Nissan, though, Alan, before we get all too pessimistic, is doing a great job today, is that it's another 50 or 60 kilograms heavier than even something like a Commodore, and it's still quite hard on its brakes and quite hard on its tyres. It hasn't been pushed along today, so to some extent it's got the most ideal conditions that it could run under. At Wanneroo, it was under pressure as the checkered flag comes out, and a win to Jim Richards as we approach the 50-minute mark, and Richards the champion for 1990 and giving Nissan their very first Australian Touring Car Championship. Tremendous performance from Jim, the team, Fred Gibson and the company.
Let's check them out for you. How they've finished. The win going to Jim Richards, 2nd place going to Peter Brock, 3rd to George Furies. We checked them out on our race score. 4th to Colin Bond and 5th to John Bower. We'll be back here at Oran Park in just a moment.
Welcome back to Oran Park Raceway, and what a result. I think the man with the poster at the moment says it all, and I'll ask him to... This ad wins the 1990 Australian Touring Car Championship. Congratulations, Jimmy Richards. It's been a long time coming, and you worked hard, and you absolutely blitzed them.
Well, it was a matter of just getting a bit of a lead at the start when the tyres and brakes were very good, and then sort of cruising along at the finish with what tyres and brakes I had left.
Everyone believed that Peter Brock might win the start and make life difficult, but you ran off into the distance. You weren't supposed to do that, I don't think.
Well, Brocky owes me $10 already because he had a bet with me last night, and I haven't forgotten it. No, right. $10 for who was first to the first corner. So I thought I had a pretty good bet going there.
You obviously had no problems at all throughout the race?
No, I didn't. No, I pressed on pretty hard at the start, and of course that didn't leave me with much rubber in that left towards the end. But you know, the object was to win, and it didn't matter by how much.
I think Tom Smith from the Shell Company are ready to put the championship sash around you.
Jim?
A Freudian slip there. He thought it was Dick Johnson. Yes, by all means. Well done, son.
Thank you. Listen, first I'd like just to thank Nissan and Fred Gibson for supplying me such a great little car to drive. We've had a great year, and this, although I've won the championship twice before, this is the best. I had a hand in them not winning it a couple of years ago, so it was fitting that I win it for them. Also thank our great sponsors, Yokohama. Without their help, obviously, we wouldn't be where we are. And our new sponsor, Sansui. And a special thanks again to Fred and the boys and Mark for doing such a great job in the testing of the car early in the week. Thank you.
Okay, there's the championship trophy coming along for you. Okay, John Hewson making the presentation there. I've got to bring a guy on that made life fairly uncomfortable for everyone in the later stages of the event. And that, of course, was Peter Brock. Well done, Brock. A good run today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There's $10 for Richo. They reckon I welch from my bets. Yeah, Richo. I had some fun and games early on. It was a very foolish bet, actually. Betting Richo I'd get to the first corner first, but I just sort of couldn't get any traction there for a lap or two. And it was a bit of a battle getting by Dick and John and Tony and Alan. But it was a thoroughly enjoyable race as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your company for the Australian Touring Car Championship. We'll catch you next time around when 7 Sport goes motor racing.